What's mine is mine, and mine and mine, and mine and mine and mine. Not yours. The wise words of the one and only Orange Lantern in the universe, Larfleeze, or also known as Agent Orange. The entity, Ophidian, who resides inside of the Orange Ring, is the creature responsible for the insatiable and undying hunger of greed that Agent Orange has had for over 1 billion years. One entity, one ring, one host, 1 billion years. Larfleeze will never relent. Now, before we get into Larfleeze's origin and his story, let's get into his data first. So the first time he ever appeared in DC Comics, it was Green Lantern Volume 4, issue number 25, which was December of 2007. So he's a fairly new character. His base of operations is the planet Okara in the Vega system. His eyes are white. Hair is orange. His powers and abilities consist of being the sole wielder of the orange light, which offers immortality, flight, force field protection, light constructs and animation, magic absorption, soul and matter manipulation. He can hear objects and people begging to be owned. He can steal the personalities of those he has killed and uses them as light construct entities. He's capable of a lot more than just that, but those are his main ones. And then his enemies are the Guardians of the Universe, the Green Lantern Corps. His affiliations, on the other hand, are the Orange Lantern Corps, which is essentially just him, the New Guardians, Pulsar Stargrave. The origin of Larfleeze. Many things about Larfleeze are still unknown other than what he has revealed about himself. Originating from a species with an insane lifespan, Larfleeze is said to be several billion years old. He comes from a 16-sibling household. Larfleeze was considered to be an ugly child and was heavily mistreated by his parents, Larfleeze and Larflem. Great names. One day, an alien race named Lakidakians came to conquer his homeworld. Larfleeze was then forced to mate with a female prisoner of his kind named Brokia, where they had many children. Being sent into slavery on other worlds and living in cruel and harsh conditions, Larfleeze eventually escaped his captivity and joined a guild of thieves, making him a wanted criminal. Wanting to pull off the greatest heist in history, Larfleeze and his thieving gang raided the planet Maltus, the birthplace of the almighty Owens. Stealing many items, they acquired a mysterious box that happened to contain the Parallax entity inside of it. The Owens then sent the Manhunters after them to retrieve the stolen merchandise, more importantly, the stolen Parallax box. Also discovering a map from an ancient Owen named Krona, it told of vast treasure on a planet called Okara. When Larfleeze and his guild arrived on the planet, they found a temple with a power battery inside, the Orange Light of Avarice. Feeling its power and emotions of greed, the thieves fought each other for the right to obtain the power of the Orange Light. Some Owens finally arrived with the Manhunters that were sent to hunt down Larfleeze and the thieves. Several Owens and Manhunters were killed due to the immense power draining of the Orange Light. Within that chaos, Larfleeze and another criminal named Blooch were the only two thieves left. Wanting to avoid more death, the Owens that remained asked Larfleeze for the box containing Parallax and that the orange ring could be theirs as long as it stays on the planet of Okara. Larfleeze and Blooch accepted even though they knew only one would be able to obtain the orange ring. In a fight to the death, Larfleeze was victorious and became Agent Orange, the sole owner of the Orange Battery. Agent Orange. Billions of years later, now in the modern day, it was the end of the Sinestro War, and multiple yellow rings made its way to the Vega star system, which the planet Okara is located, and where Larfleeze has been residing since. The Guardians authorized Green Lanterns to enter the Vega system and retrieve the yellow rings. As they entered the Vega system, they didn't enter Okara's atmosphere, and Larfleeze didn't perceive this as a threat, so he let them be. This was until the controllers decided to come to Okara in search for the orange power battery. If you don't know who or what controllers are, the simplest classification for them is they are basically the evil version of Owens/Guardians. Aware of the inevitable war of light that the DC universe would be thrown into eventually, the controllers wanted the orange light to heighten their power. Angered at their trespassing, Larfleeze kills the controllers and hunts down one of the Green Lanterns currently in the Vega system. Stell, a Green Lantern who was pursuing a yellow ring, was caught by Larfleeze. Larfleeze brands Stell and sends him back to Oa, the homeworld of the Green Lanterns and the Guardians. When Stell approaches the Guardians, a construct of Larfleeze animates from the branding on Stell's body. Larfleeze obviously being furious at the Guardians, they try to tell him that they weren't after the orange battery and that it was their evil counterparts, the controllers. Not believing them or even listening to them, Larfleeze declares war on the Owens and any lantern that get in his way. Larfleeze turns blue. With the Guardians now upset with Larfleeze, the Guardians have now opened the Vega system public to any Green Lantern. This allows them to assault Larfleeze and the planet of Okara. A team of Green Lanterns and Hal Jordan, who was in possession of a blue ring at this time, arrive in the Vega system to fight Larfleeze. Although the power of the orange ring is too strong for them, and Larfleeze eventually finds himself in a one-on-one fight with Blue Lantern Hal Jordan. Seeing the blue ring, Larfleeze feels an intense urge to acquire the ring, a surge of greed, if you will. The blue ring would never willingly place itself in the hands of Larfleeze. The blue ring of hope and the orange ring of greed don't exactly mix. Larfleeze bargains with Hal over the ring, and Hal agrees to give him the ring. Still unable to remove the ring from Hal's finger, however, Larfleeze forms an axe construct with his orange ring and cuts Hal's hand off. Finally having possession of the blue ring, it accepts Larfleeze to the Blue Lantern Corps. The constant materialistic hunger that Larfleeze feels begins to subside due to the power of the blue ring, but it doesn't last long. All of this was an animated construct. Hal Jordan's hand was actually intact, and Larfleeze was fooled into thinking he had the ring. Angered by this, Larfleeze and Hal began to fight again. Hal started to realize, though, that Larfleeze may be too powerful for him. Thinking he could try to remove the orange ring from Larfleeze wouldn't work. Larfleeze doesn't just possess the orange ring, but he has been in possession of the orange battery for so long that even without the ring, Larfleeze is technically the embodiment of the orange light. That's what soaking in power for billions of years will do to you. Although Hal finds it in himself to fully utilize the power of the blue ring, which allows him to subdue Larfleeze for a very short time. The Guardians then choose to negotiate with Larfleeze one last time, and whereas the details are never fully revealed, Larfleeze does ask the Guardians how he could acquire a true Blue Lantern ring. Larfleeze is then seen later on sending an army of Orange Lantern constructs to the Blue Lantern homeworld, Odom, as he sits in his temple on Okara and observes his conquest. The New Guardians. The Blackest Night event has begun. While Larfleeze's constructs on Odom are gaining ground, his excitement comes to a quick end when the Black Hand, the Black Lantern leader, creates constructs of the very identities that Larfleeze has been using. Fleeing his temple, his concentration is so focused on survival that his animated constructs on Odom dissipate, and his conquest for a blue ring has now ended. As he's fleeing, a convenient arrival of Atrocitus, the Red Lantern, helps Larfleeze defeat the Black Lantern constructs. Demanding Seeing that Larfleeze hands over the orange battery to Atrocitus, they quarrel for a time before more Black Lanterns arrive. There is then another convenient arrival of other colored lanterns. Saint Walker, the Blue Lantern, Hal Jordan, back to green, Carol Ferris, a pink lantern, Indigo One, a purple lantern, and Sinestro, who is of course the owner of Yellow. They all come to recruit Atrocitus and Larfleeze. One person from each spectrum of colors banding together to destroy the Black Lantern battery. To convince Larfleeze to join this group, Sade, a guardian for the Green Lantern Corps, offers to become the personal guardian for Larfleeze if they successfully defeat the Black Lanterns. Larfleeze accepts the offer and joins this group along with Atrocitus. During the final battle, Larfleeze's orange ring gets temporarily duplicated to assist in fighting the Black Lanterns. Even though Larfleeze is heavily against anyone tasting the power of the orange light other than him, the ring chooses Lex Luthor to be the wielder for 24 hours. Even with immense destruction and fighting everywhere, Larfleeze and Lex Luthor were at each other's throats due to their emotionally heightened presence of greed. After the defeat of the Black Lanterns, Sade fulfills her promise in becoming the guardian to Larfleeze, and Larfleeze himself hands Lex Luthor over to the heroes of Earth out of disgust. Larfleeze comes back to Earth. Wanting more possessions during the Brightest Day event, Larfleeze returns to Earth and questions Lex Luthor, demanding an answer on what humans most wish to possess. Luthor's answer to Larfleeze is power and land. Larfleeze has plenty of power, so he decides to attain ownership of land. Ransacking and taking over a small Midwestern town, Hal Jordan confronts Larfleeze and tells him to stop what he's doing. Larfleeze tells Hal that he won't steal from the town any further because he has learned of the legend of Santa Claus and is preparing a list of valuables that he wants from the gracious gift giver. So Hal needs to explain to Larfleeze, like a child, that Santa isn't real. Larfleeze obviously doesn't listen, so Hal changes the subject to more pressing matters. There is a Larfleeze Christmas special that I won't be getting into in this video, but if anyone is interested, I'm sure there are many ways you can, find it, read it, go to a bookstore, comic book store, or even somehow online. Hal asks Larfleeze how he's been capable of suppressing the orange entity Ophidian inside of the orange battery for billions of years. That way, Hal and other lanterns can keep the other colored battery entities locked and secured in their own batteries, since someone was currently trying to obtain each entity. Just before Larfleeze could tell Hal, the culprit behind this plot arrives to fight Hal and Larfleeze. The big-headed Hector Hammond, pun intended. After a struggle-filled fight, Hammond finally manages to open the orange battery and releases Ophidian, where it then chooses Hammond to be a new wielder of the orange light. Fleeing Hammond and Ophidian, Larfleeze admits to Hal that his relationship with the orange entity is not perfect and rather quite antagonistic. It is then revealed from Ophidian that Larfleeze was the only one in the universe who was capable of subduing the entity instead of the entity subduing the host. Wanting a personal revenge, Ophidian tries to devour Larfleeze, but is unsuccessful with the help of Hal. After this, Hammond seems to be capable of doing the same thing, subduing the wants of Ophidian and using the entity as a tool. Hammond then goes out to find what he has always wanted, Carol Ferris. While she currently resided in Las Vegas, Hal needed to go save her, where Larfleeze agreed to join him and help. After helping Hal save Carol Ferris and returning her to the Star Sapphires, where she becomes queen, Larfleeze has a couple of encounters where he speaks to different entities belonging to other Lantern Corps. In these encounters, it is learned that Larfleeze may not be his real name and that somewhere in the universe his mother and father are still alive alive and that they miss him. At the end of this story in Brightest Day, his eyes are shown to glisten the Blue Lantern symbol, implying that his greedy and selfish temptations may somewhat cool off. New 52 and Rebirth. Larfleeze's origin in the New 52 stays relatively the same as his previous origin, so we don't need to venture that far back. So on his travels, Larfleeze finds a book called the Book of Oa. This book was a detailed history of the planet Oa and its inhabitants, the Guardians, or the Owens. Jealous of this reputation this book holds, Larfleeze wants a detailed writing history of himself. So to accomplish this, he kidnaps an alien named Pulsar Stargrave. Larfleeze makes him his servant and demands him to begin the writing of the Book of Larfleeze. During this time, Larfleeze was hearing rumors of another Orange Lantern seen outside of the Vega system. This obviously angered him as he believed he was supposed to be the only holder of this power. After venturing out and learning that this rumor was exactly that, a rumor, Larfleeze heads back to his planet Okara to find out that he has been robbed. After multiple investigations on what happened, Sade, his personal guardian from before the New 52 era, popped out from his ring as a construct. Claiming to want revenge for her death, Sade tampered with the ring, which also altered his mind to the point that his treasures were never stolen. Larfleeze destroyed everything, leaving only himself and his servant Stargrave. Larfleeze and Brainiac. Continuing his travels and quest for materialism, Larfleeze comes across a robot called Brainiac 2.0. This robot was a servant to Brainiac and shared similar attributes to Larfleeze, being collectors. After regaining many treasures due to the destruction of the other treasures from Sade, Larfleeze used Brainiac's technology to shrink things down to smaller sizes so he could make room for more items. Larfleeze and Brainiac 2.0 captured the intergalactic starfish Starro and used it to capture the Green Lantern and Yellow Lantern core. They did this by releasing Starro on a world and shrinking them down when the Lanterns arrived to save the day. The two cores started to fight each other inside of the jar, which made Larfleeze worried. If either party died, that would mean they wouldn't belong to him anymore. Larfleeze decided to let out the two cores, which ended up being a ploy so they could regain their freedoms and fight Larfleeze themselves. Larfleeze spawned so many orange constructs that it was overwhelming the Green and Yellow Lanterns. To defeat Larfleeze, the Green Lantern started to release his collections off-planet, and the Yellow Lanterns overwhelmed him with the fear of loss. Larfleeze decided to flee the planet of Okara. Although this of course wouldn't be the end of Larfleeze's selfish war on the universe, Larfleeze then destroys Brainiac 2.0 and absorbs him into his orange ring so that Brainiac 2.0 would serve him forever. Well, there is the characterization of Larfleeze. And you know, guys, I absolutely love this world in DC. I love the power rings. I think it is what makes DC very unique. You know, there's a lot of characters and a lot of things within DC comic books that make it special, but there's just something about the Lantern Corps that I absolutely love. I love learning about them, and to be honest with you, I didn't really know much about Larfleeze, so it was great to expand my knowledge about this character other than the simpler things I know about him from comic books like The Brightest Day or The Blackest Night. It's also really interesting about Larfleeze how there are times where he is depicted to be a full-on villain, but realistically he's neither good or bad. He is just neutral. He's simply looking out for himself, and I think Larfleeze is a pretty good depiction of that. He's just selfish, and sometimes that can be good for you but bad for others, and it's just a specific point of view. But anyways, everyone, that is it for the 17th episode of DC Character Histories. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new from a character you didn't really know much about, and if there's something you really liked about this character, drop in the comments below and let me know what it is. If you also have special requests for characters you'd like to know more about, also put that down in the comments below and let me know who you'd like me to discuss next. But anyways, everyone, that is it for this video, and until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.